In 2017, Lionsgate released a reboot to the cheesy, super kid-friendly 1993 show and made it darker, edgier, and more aimed to the adults who grew up with the series. And it looked like they wanted to take a crack at the whole cinematic universe idea because they were planning to have 7 more Power Ranger movies to come out. However, this movie didn't do so good in the box office, barely making back the production cost. If you take in marketing and other spendings needed to make a film successful, Power Rangers lost Lionsgate a decent amount of money and a sequel might not happen. Power Rangers lost Lionsgate a decent amount of money and a sequel might not happen. A sequel might not happen.
A sequel might not happen. Never say never, but it isn't likely.
Well, I did say never, so I don't look like a complete fool, right?
Wrong!
Okay, so there seems to be good news for the Power Rangers fan base, at least. A new movie will come out eventually, but no real confirmation as of me recording this on whether it's a sequel to the 2017 movie or if they're just gonna go the Spider-Man route and reboot the franchise again. But speaking of the last movie, this video is part 2 of a review for it. In part 1, I reviewed the full movie and got my video blocked in Germany for some reason. Thanks, Lionsgate. I didn't even say the movie was horrible, just that I didn't like it, but can see why some people do. Anyway, in this part I want to compare the 2017 movie with the original film from 1995 and see which one I thought was better. That will happen at the end of this video, but right now I want to refresh everyone's mind on the first film, and what better way to do so than to review it. I honestly don't have as many plot points or moments to go over in this movie as it was pretty bare bones in its plot and various story elements. It's exactly like the TV show in that regard, which is good seeing as the same characters and actors from seasons 2 and 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are the stars of this film. Unfortunately, because of that, the acting is a bit...
Alpha, what's going on?
A massive surge of evil energy is overloading our sensors. Ay, 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 ay.
Well, pack your bags, because we're sending you right back where you came from.
I'm gonna be the eagle. Be the swallow. Be the swallow. Come on, baby. Hey, let go of me. I want my mommy.
quirky, to say the least. But when I was a kid, it was exciting to see the same characters on TV up on the big screen, so I'll ignore that. But that's the only thing I look past out of nostalgia. You got me, movie? I ain't gonna forgive anything else you mess up on. I will be very judgmental over everything else. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, sir. I mean, boss. I mean, poobah.
The 2017 reboot began with Zordon's Rangers betrayed and defeated by Rita Repulsa, indicating that this movie is going to be darker than what we saw before. The 1995 movie starts in a similar way, but going the opposite route by showing the Rangers having fun skydiving for charity. It's a really nice way to show the tone for the rest of the film, but the problem is that while this setup is fine for the kids who were fans at the time, it does absolutely nothing to introduce these characters to those who have never seen the show before.
Come on, we're out of here.
Easy, Rocky.
All right, guys, for 50 seconds to the drop zone. All right, pinheads. The stealth eagle's about to fly. Get out with a swooping swallow.
Well, lead on, fly boys.
I mean, really? Who are these guys? To someone who has never seen the show, they'd have no past connection to these characters. Sure, there was a Star Wars-esque opening crawl trying to explain the lore, but that coupled with this first scene doesn't explain who they are. As far as we could tell, these two characters could be Power Rangers too with an introduction like that. Anyway, let's just move on.
Looking good up there.
Thanks, man. Hey, maybe next time you can join us.
Really? Could I?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that, Fred, in about 10 or 12 years, all right? Hey, congratulations, Tommy. The observatory just got a new lease on life. It's great, huh?
Yeah, thanks, man.
Awesome. Ryan's comedy's passing over in 2 days.
That kid you saw talking with Tommy, yeah, he has a whole side story that I'm mostly going to ignore for this. It's nothing particularly special, but I guess I'll briefly go over it a bit later.
Rock and roll. Yeah.
90s trends never die, right? Right?
You idiot! All your kicking and screaming threw off the stealth eagle sensor direction. We're from the Angel Grove Building Inspector's office.
That's never gonna work.
Come and have a look at this.
Go on, Dan.
It was a simpler time back then. It was considered comedy gold for young audiences to have someone believe an unbelievable claim like that, especially after these so-called building inspectors parachuted into the construction zone, because that's how every building inspector travels to their jobs. Anyway, the construction workers find a mysterious sewer that reveals an egg-shaped prison that contains the main villain of this movie. I don't know why it's an egg unless the writers don't like Cadbury for some reason. Zordon is aware of this discovery and calls the Rangers to the command center to explain the situation. This command center is a lot brighter and more atmospheric than the one in the show, and I really like the improvements made when I was little. While it's still a low-budget film, said budget was larger than what was given to produce the show, so it makes sense that they want to improve upon the original design. I wonder how they made Zordon look.
Rangers!
That face is the stuff of nightmares. What'd they do to you, Zordon?
6,000 years ago, a morphological being known as Ivan Ooze ruled the world with a reign of unparalleled terror. He was on the verge of completing construction of his ultimate weapons, the Ectomorphicon Titans. You must return it to the depths before it is opened and Ivan is released.
His ectomorphicons were buried near the chamber. If Ivan escapes, he's sure to find them.
That still doesn't explain what they did to your face. A botched Botox treatment, perhaps? So while the Rangers are off to the construction zone, we see the villains of the main series, Rita and Lord Zedd, arrive on the scene to release Ivan from his prison. They're accompanied by their loyal henchman Goldar and... wait, who is that?
Well, I say we hard-boil that thing!
I'm with her. I'm hungry. That's 'cause you're a pig. Hey, Kurt, take a look at this.
No need to wake him. In fact, why don't you take a little nap yourself?
Yeah, I could do that. I just choose not to.
Really? Who is this? I know this movie isn't canon to the show, but they have all the other characters from it in this movie. Why couldn't they have Finster or Squat and Babu, but instead this random unknown monster? Anyway, Zedd releases Ivan from his prison and requests he takes out Zordon, who along with a team of warriors were the ones that imprisoned Ivan in there to begin with. They leave him to do his dirty work while the Rangers show up to realize they're too late.
I'm the galactically feared, globally reviled, universally despised. They call me Ivan Ooze.
You obviously don't know who you're dealing with, Mr. Raisinhead.
Really?
Yeah, we're the Power Rangers.
Woo! Where's my autograph book? Ah!
Get used to this tone and witty humor. This sort of dialogue lasts throughout almost the entire film. So Ivan creates some ooze-like minions to distract the Rangers while he makes his way to the command center to kill Zordon. But at least we finally get to see some action, and to be fair, the martial arts and gymnastic abilities displayed are impressive.
Welcome to my nightmare. Play kick the can?
Kiss the makeup!
To fill your wish. Let me get the door. Sneak attack. Use you lose.
The jokes, however, not so much. And you know those cartoonish sound effects sprinkled in there? I didn't add those. They're in the movie, because apparently a movie designed for kids can't have any serious fight scenes back in the mid-90s, and you could thank angry, overprotective parents for that. When Zedd was introduced as the new main antagonist in season 2 of the show, he was a very serious character and at the time was intimidating compared to Rita. Apparently too intimidating because parents complained about Zedd potentially being too scary for kids, so the show dumbed down his character a bit by making him egotistical and sarcastic instead of serious and scary, all while reintroducing Rita to add a romance arc for him and sort of humanize him a bit, by having Rita roofie Zedd in his sleep and making him believe he's in love with her. Very kid-friendly. But it's okay, they had a Jewish-style wedding for the couple and Zedd turned out to actually be in love with Rita after the drugs wore off, so that's a thing, I guess. To be fair and honest, I didn't mind the change then, and I still don't today. The changes to Lord Zedd never bothered me, and I like the whole marriage aspect between him and Rita. It's just a little disappointing now that I'm looking back that parents thought their kids couldn't handle something even slightly scary or serious, so all villains couldn't be such. The same is said for this movie. You can't take anything seriously because this is supposed to be for kids. It has to be wacky and fun all the time, right?
Correct!
So the teens are backed into a corner and morph into the Ranger forms, and honestly, I really like the Americanized redesigns for the spandex suits that were used in the show.
That is not spandex. The material is a self-assembling memory.
But while the suits are a definite upgrade, the puns and one-liners...
Back off! Nice flight!
It's gonna be one messy night.
Paradox of Thunderwave! Eliminate the trap! See you next fall!
not so much. But once the fight is over, they're forced to demorph because Ivan Ooze was successful in destroying the command center.
You robbed me of my pride. I was the supreme ruler of the most powerful empire in the universe. And now, it's time to pay the piper.
You know, if I keep commenting on these jokes, I'll be getting just as repetitive as the movie is with them, so I'll drop it. Just know they are persistent throughout the entire movie, even in serious moments like this. But before I do drop the subject of puns and not taking the villain seriously, can I just for a second point out that Ivan Ooze kind of reminds me of the grandpa in the old TV show The Munsters? I mean, look at this. I can't be the only one who sees this, right? And now if you didn't before, you can't unsee it now, so you're welcome. But anyway, the Rangers find out that the command center is in ruins and Zordon is dying now that his energy tube is destroyed, which is causing him to age rapidly. They are told that there is an unknown power strong enough to stop Ivan Ooze and save Zordon on a distant planet, so they travel there to find it. This leaves Ivan to enact his plans to take over Earth. He starts by betraying Rita and Lord Zedd, trapping them in a snow globe. He then creates bird monsters called Tengus to go kill the Rangers before they can find this new power source, and figures out a way to bring his Zords, the Ectomorphicons, back to life.
Taking over the world is one thing. Finding good help to run it for you, that's the killer.
Would you like me to make a few calls?
No need. I'm going to recruit the parents of Angel Grove.
No offense, Buzz, but they might find you a little disgusting.
Seriously, who is this guy? Ivan then creates an ooze that zombifies the minds of the parents of Angel Grove and enslaves them to dig up his machines. This is a side story for the boy you saw earlier in the movie. He has to find a way to free his dad and the other parents, and this is escalated when Ivan commands the parents to kill themselves once they're no longer useful.
You will return to the construction site and leap to your doom.
Yeah, leave it doom.
Bye-bye.
So we can't take the main villain seriously because it's too scary for young children, but parents being told to commit suicide is completely kid-friendly entertainment?
One of these things is not like the others.
This whole side story is actually pretty pointless. It's just there to give this kid, along with the show's comedy relief characters Bulk and Skull, something to do in this movie. It serves no purpose to the main plot, and nothing really would be missed out on if it was cut from the film altogether. It's just filler to add to the runtime. That's all. Back to what actually matters to the story, the Rangers make it to the planet and are almost immediately attacked by the Tengus. Without their powers, they start to lose until a mysterious figure steps in and... Kids can't take a villain seriously, as a serious villain attempting to murder the mentor of the heroes is too mature for a young audience, yet a Red Sonja ripoff is completely kid-friendly entertainment? I mean, I'm not complaining, it's just an interesting oversight. That's all.
Go back to wherever it is you came from. We can't go back.
We were told there was a great power here. Is it true?
Yes! The ground is littered with the bones of those who have tried for it and failed.
We won't fail.
Leave Phaedos before it's too late.
Look, we don't want any trouble. Our leader Zordon got
Zordon!
Find him! Save!
Zordon.
Did you say Zordon? I am Dulcia, Master Warrior of the planet Phaedos. What has happened to Zordon?
He was attacked by this cosmic being named Ivan Ooze.
Ivan Ooze is free?
You've heard of him?
Ivan Ooze is a monster.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
So Dulcia leads the Rangers to a fire pit and tells them they have an inner animal spirit that will guide them to this hidden power source. Does this mean the Rangers are otherkin, seeing they each have the spirit of an animal living inside of them? You know what? Forget I even mentioned that. Each Ranger has an animal unique to them. Tommy is a falcon, Aisha is a bear, Kimberly is a crane, Rocky is an ape, Billy is a wolf, and Adam...
Adam? Adam, what's wrong?
I'm a frog.
Yes, a frog. Like the one you kissed. To get a handsome prince.
Oh, you know he acted like that on purpose so he'd get more attention from Dulcia. I could see right through that look. Don't lie to me, Adam.
May your animal spirits watch over you.
Yep, this scene was definitely written by Otherkin. You can't convince me otherwise. But from here, nothing noteworthy happens for a while. The Rangers get into two fights, one against skeleton dinosaurs and another against stone warriors, and then they finally find their new power source, unlocking their morphing abilities again. This allows them to travel back to Earth and take on Ivan Ooze's ectomorphicons in their own Zords. Even by 90s standards, this is poor CGI. The first Jurassic Park came out just 2 years before this film and it had much better effects. I get that there was a much smaller budget with this movie compared to Jurassic Park, but the 90s Godzilla movies in Japan had better looking robots and monsters and had an even smaller budget. And they still primarily used guys in rubber suits back then. But I guess it's okay, CGI was still new and exciting to try out back then, so I don't blame them for wanting to attempt it.
Alright guys, I've got a lock on the ooze man.
Here comes that cute little pink ranger to the rescue.
Oh, you think she's cute too, huh?
Alright, I'll admit, that joke actually got me to laugh. Out of all the puns and one-liners in this movie, this is the only joke I still find funny to this day. But anyway, the Rangers eventually destroy one of the ectomorphicons, so Ivan decides to possess his last Zord and defeat the Rangers himself, and wow, that's just disturbing.
Whoa, somebody call a plastic surgeon.
I thought the movie didn't want the villains to be too scary for the children. Maybe it's because they want the Megazord to be even creepier? Why does it have no face, but a mustache right under where a nose should be, but isn't? And is that a strong bad-like mouth for no reason whatsoever? That's just weird. But while this Megazord fight is longer than the reboot's final showdown, it's still pretty underwhelming. I'll blame the low-budget CGI for this, but how it ends kinda rubs me the wrong way. They fly into space to try and defeat Ivan by tossing him into a comet, but look at how they do it.
Here it comes! We have to break his grip!
Desperate times call for desperate measures. What are you doing? Taking care of business.
We're out of here! Right!
Oh no.
I thought it was funny when I was a kid, but now it's kinda disturbing. I mean, don't they know that's where P is stored? That could have gotten very messy. But that's pretty much it. They managed to revive Zordon, restore the command center, and celebrate a job well done. And that's the end. Or is it?
I am King Goldstar, the ruler of the universe!
Yeah, that's it. There's no sequel to follow this. Sure, there was another Power Rangers movie a few years later, but that one was technically the season premiere for Turbo. This movie didn't tie into the main show at all. In fact, the show had a completely different origin for these Ninja Zords and the Tengu Warriors. The movie is completely non-canon, and that's okay. But how is it compared to the 2017 reboot? Is it better or worse? My thoughts on this are a little mixed. See, in my opinion, they're very similar when it comes to the quality of their writing and story, which isn't really a compliment. They both don't have a good story, but there's been worse plots that have been crafted into a feature film before. Both movies actually have a similar goal, being to find the ability to become strong enough to fight a great evil and save the ones you love. Even the ending fight is similar, as both main antagonists end up possessing a larger creature to take on the Megazords. But the biggest difference between the 1995 film and the 2017 reboot is the overall presentation, and even then there were similarly weird choices for the feel of the movies in certain places. While the reboot tried to be dark, it had awkwardly placed but very well done lighthearted moments. The problem with them is that the movie wanted that dark outlook but couldn't keep it up halfway through and ditched it for the lighter moments. The original movie did have a fun and lighthearted feel overall, yes, but in the moments that needed to be dark they made a joke out of it, and having a more mature and over-sexualized character was an odd choice. Again, I'm not really complaining about how Dulcia is dressed, but it's just an odd decision to me to have a very sexy character in a movie directed for the 5 to 10 year old demographic in the 1990s. 90s. This is targeted at the same audience that had angry parents complaining about how Lord Zedd was too scary for a children's show, and that this is the same movie who used fart sound effects for the action scenes to make everything more kid-friendly. In that context, having Dulcea dress like she did seems more out of place, and it's like something for a more mature audience when compared to the rest of the movie. What I'm saying is that both movies have the polar opposite feel compared to each other, yet they both also have weird choices when it comes to the changes made to the overall tones. And that's why I have a very hard time deciding which of the two I prefer. But when it comes down to it, if I had to make a choice, I guess I'd go with the 1995 movie being slightly better. It's partly due to nostalgia, this is true. But despite being non-canon, this movie is still more accurate to the source material than the reboot. Take out the TV actors and replace them with new ones, but keep the same writing and it's still a very similar feel to the show. Having the same actors only aided that feel. And there's nothing wrong with how the actors of the reboot portrayed their characters. They did the best they could. But they were written in a way that just didn't have the same appeal as the old show, and some of the changes made were so off-putting that I just couldn't enjoy some of it. In the end though, it's just my opinion. I don't think either movie is good, but they're not necessarily bad either. I enjoy the old one slightly more, but if someone likes the new one better, then that's okay. The reboot went a different direction, one that some people like, and I get it. There are things I wish were different in the original movie. It could have made Ivan a bit more serious, and it would have benefited from being a little dark in places, much like the reboot did benefit from having lighter moments in its film, albeit awkwardly placed and very sporadic after the halfway point. But before I go, I do want to know one thing. Who is that pig guy? Huh. His name is Mordant, and he's Goldar's second cousin. This explanation was taken out during the final draft of the script. Out of all the things to throw out, is this guy's name and backstory? Are you serious? I've been wondering that ever since I saw this movie in theaters, and he doesn't even remotely look like Goldar. I don't even think they're the same species. Mordant is a pig. Goldar is like an armored flying monkey on steroids. Backstories like this shouldn't be cut. It would have just taken a few seconds of explanation and that's it. How hard is it to just fit that somewhere in the dialogue?